So I started 110 West Group a little over a year ago, and I provide talent, leadership, and organizational culture consulting to leaders who want to make sure that the legacy that they're leaving at a company is a strong and positive one, knowing that that's just as important as what they accomplish while they're there. So I help them make sure that they're going to have that talent, leadership, and culture in place that they need to achieve successful business results.
I would love for you to reflect back on this last year. What's been the hardest thing becoming an entrepreneur?
Getting over my imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
and just believing that people that I have a voice, that I have a perspective, that I know what I'm talking about, and I'm a thought leader in my own right, and to own that.
Right.
That was really challenging for me and continues to be something I struggle a little bit with. I think I've told you the story about when I was first framing up the legacy leadership model, and I had it written down on a piece of paper. And I asked my husband if I could talk through it with him. And my husband's a sales guy. And so I was talking through this with him, and he looked at me and says, "This is amazing. How do you know all of this?" And I was just like, I just do. I mean, this is what I've been doing for over 2 decades. So really feeling confident enough to own that, that's been my biggest challenge.
Yeah. And that's a huge breakthrough too, right? I mean, when you start to do that, you stepped into your own podcast this year.
Mm-hmm. I did.
So it is legacy. It's the podcast is called Legacy Leaders.
It is. This is how we lead.
This is how we lead.
Legacy leaders.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. And, so you're putting a stake out in the ground. You're owning your message. You're, showing up. How did stepping into your voice in a year that's 2020 when, it's a very different year for putting our voice out in the world. How did you get your voice out in the world? What were some of the things that you did?
What I've done primarily this year is with the podcast, and I'm not doing the podcast to monetize it. I am doing it to give voice to other leaders who I think are amazing leaders. I'm doing it to actually give voice to other thought leaders so they can share their expertise. I truly believe that there is plenty of work out there for all of us. Mm-hmm. And if I give these individuals a platform and some space to share their message, that will come back to me, right? I truly believe in that energy exchange.
Yeah.
So that's been the biggest approach to getting my voice out there. There is more that I need and want to do. I have had the lucky problem of having a lot of work this year. After a couple of really slow months in March and April, things just exploded for me. And part of what I love about being an entrepreneur, and not like I have a portfolio of work, I don't work on one client full time, is that I can manage my schedule. And it's very important to me. Part of why I made this decision to go off on my own is because I wanted to be able to do that. I wanted to be able to have a blended life that includes all of the things that I love to do, and not just sitting in front of a computer for 60, 70 hours a week.
What are the results of this year for you?
So I think, obviously, financially, it's been a really good year, which is nice to be able to look back at. But of course, as somebody who has a portfolio-based business, I'm looking at, okay, what's going to come in Q1? What's going to come in Q1? But I have, in the last week, I talked to 2 prospects, and I had to say, I want to work with you. We could start in December, and they were both comfortable with that. So it's nice to have that problem. The work with the Mastermind has given me that framing from which, I have this portfolio work, and some of it is work that I absolutely love. Some of it is work that's okay, but I'm really good at. Mm-hmm. As I continue to balance out what that looks like with building my business and working on my business, I now have this framework to launch from that I didn't have prior to March, April, when I started working with the Mastermind. So that has been that feels really good to me. It feels very authentic, and very solid. It's not to say that it can't improve and it won't shift and won't nuance, won't ever change, but it gives me a place to start from as I look at what I want to do in 2021. And I have been investigating, like, what are some things that I want to do personally that could both add to the business and help reinforce the legacy leader concept. And also I have a legacy culture concept as well. Help to reinforce that work and give me a few more tools in my toolbox.
That's awesome. And the final question for you is, what has the Mastermind done for you? I mean, how has it helped you in this year?
It has given me a community of other women, some who are in similar spaces, some who are in very different spaces, women who are very creative. And I'm talking artistically and verbally, and that creativity is not necessarily a strength for me. So having that group of women who we've built a community with, who are strong in so many different areas, then it gives you more people to bounce ideas off of. And that's been really valuable. And to hear what other people are challenged with and struggling with, and then taking the learnings from that and saying, okay, how might this apply to what I'm doing as well? Having that community has been really valuable for me. And I'll also just come back and say, like, from a coaching perspective, I was just talking about this weekend with a friend. Like, early on, I think one of our first coaching calls, Cami, you told me you're not charging enough. And I knew that, but I'm that person who needs to be given permission to do something. And I started building in higher rates into my projects, and my clients haven't blinked at it. Others in that mastermind reinforce the work that I'm doing, and also being willing to be honest when something maybe isn't working, and being able to contribute as well. So I feel like I have that opportunity to give back. I know with 100% confidence, the framework that I have for the legacy leaders would not exist if I hadn't embarked on this journey this year with the coaching and the mastermind. And that is the platform on which my podcast is based. It's the platform on which I want to frame up more ways that I can productize the work that I do, to make it repeatable and scalable and sustainable. I wouldn't be doing that. I wouldn't have that foundation if we hadn't done this work as a group and in a coaching relationship together.
Thank you.
I think the last thing I'd add is that, if somebody's thinking about joining a mastermind, look into it, find a group that really speaks to you, find a leader who resonates with you. I looked at a couple of different groups and went with my gut, and I'm so glad I did. And when I look back, I know that it's, there's an investment there, and I know that it's worth the investment. And I know that that's been recouped from a more pragmatic perspective, but just from that support perspective, it pays dividends that you can't calculate. So it's definitely worth it.